What the Tech is sponsored by Shutterstock.com, with over 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. For 30% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code WhatTheTech2. Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks, with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature. For a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew. Squarespace, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use offer code WhatTheTech1. And by Ting, mobile that makes sense. Go to gfq.ting.com and get a $25 credit when signing up.
What the Tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I am a very sick Andrew Zarian. I'm joined by Paul, the gymnast Tharad. How you doing, Paul?
Hello.
You had a nice workout prior to the show.
I had a short workout.
What does your workout consist of?
Today it was 25 minutes on the elliptical. I usually do the elliptical twice a day, and I shoveled a little bit.
Yeah, I know you guys got a bad storm about 2 days ago, right?
We're getting a bad storm right now.
Are you really? Oh, it's happening right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know we were supposed to get hit with one about 2 days ago, and nothing happened.
Go to Facebook, dude. I just published a bunch of photos of it. It's pretty crazy.
We got nothing 2 days ago when they were saying like a storm's coming. Nothing. Today, I woke up, it was like 8 inches of snow on the ground.
Yeah, we have over a foot. I'm getting a little tired of it.
Well, it's almost over. Spring forward, Paul. You got to change your clock on Sunday.
See, if they had a hedgehog in charge of this instead of a groundhog, we'd already be in spring. This is what's wrong with the world.
For people that are tuning in live, we're recording the show on Friday, a couple days late.
For people who are tuning in live, we're recording the show today.
Well, I want to explain to them why.
Which is Friday.
For people who don't know what day it is. The reason why we're doing that is because I was dying all week. I had the worst flu known to man. I had nearly 105 temperature on Tuesday night. I should have gone to a hospital. I didn't. And today's is actually the first day that I'm able to function like a human being. And I don't have a fever, but it's still in my nose and my throat. So I know I'm going to get the email saying, Andrew, there was something wrong with your microphone. No, it's just my crappy voice today.
You sound like crap.
You sound like crap. I'm like, yeah.
That's how I sounded for most of January. I completely understand. I'm so sorry.
So it was awful, but I wanted to put out a show, and the reason really why I wanted to do the show is because it was supposed to be the drinking show on Tuesday. So today is the drinking show. And what a better way to end the week
than with Dimetap Chasers.
Actually, that is. This segment of the show, guys, is brought to you by NyQuil, the cold and flu nighttime relief medicine.
It's actually brought to you by NyQuil, but you make sure you're drinking the daytime version, not the nighttime version.
Oh, no, this is the nighttime version. So this is my drink for the day. Okay. And I'm going to take it's
going to be a quick show.
Nice big gulp from it. Medicine flavor. By the way, this does not do crap. When I'm telling you, like, this is the biggest scam on the planet. You got to drink half this bottle to at least have any kind of relief.
I'm going to drink all of it because I want to feel really good.
I just want to show you this. Paul, I don't know if you could see it on the camera. This was full on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
I drank nearly an entire bottle in 3 days.
You look like a vampire when you drink that.
Why? Because it's dripping all over my face?
Yeah.
So that's my drink of the day. What do you
tell you my theory about medicine?
No, what is your theory?
I think that they could make medicine taste good, but that they don't do it on purpose. Because there's a psychosomatic effect that occurs when you drink something really gross like that, where you're like, you know what? It has to taste like this. It must be doing something good. I'm going to drink this. And that actually may help you get better as much as the medicine.
You know what? That actually makes a lot of sense. Tylenol now has like Tylenol PM liquid, and it tastes like it's vanilla, but it tastes really good. And they just started. They just
That won't
started
help
doing
you get
this.
better, though. That's terrible.
It's terrible. No, you just want to keep drinking it and go to sleep, and now wake up. What are you drinking, Paul?
I am drinking the greatest beer on earth,
What is that?
which is, of course, Delirium Tremens.
Oh, I love that beer.
But I'm drinking it. I don't have a Delirium Tremens glass yet, so I am drinking it out of a Chimay glass.
Very nice. You're very classy with your glasses. I'm drinking NyQuil out of a bottle, and you're drinking fancy beer out of fancy glasses.
Right.
Actually, no. This is not my drink. I'm having a coffee, and I have a viewer sent me a coconut coffee and caramel vodka,
Oh God.
and it's
That actually
amazing.
sounds great.
It's actually I'm not a big vodka guy. It's amazingly good, and I put a little bit in my coffee, and it tastes great. So that's my drink today.
We go to this local institution that makes what they call adult milkshakes, and I don't usually drink stuff like that. Obviously, that is crazy high in calories and bad for you on at least 7 levels. But I did try one time. They had one that was it was like whiskey and peanut butter, and it was like the most excellent, crazy milkshake alcohol thing.
I've never had that.
Yeah, no, why would you? It's nuts.
It's crazy. Why would you even try to do that?
Yeah, it was good.
So we're going to be drinking today. Today's a drinking show. It's going to be a loose show, guys. We're going to be taking viewer questions from the chat room, and we have a couple of questions that were sent over to me over the last 3 months that we never got to. So we're going to talk about that and a couple other topics, which I want to go into something now. Over the last couple of days since I was sick, I really didn't do any work. I just watched TV and I watch, my movies and my stories.
I'm just curious how that's different from your normal schedule.
Normally, I pretend to work. This time, I didn't even attempt to work.
You watch TV with a laptop on your lap?
Yeah. But it got me thinking, content consumption has totally changed over the last 5 years. I mean, dramatically.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about what I did throughout, the last couple days, and I didn't really watch anything on my television. And if I did, it was internet content. And I wasn't even talking about Netflix. I watch, let's say I watched Windows Weekly on my Google TV.
When are you talking about?
I'm talking about now.
Oh,
the
no,
the last couple days.
Right. Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I watched Windows Weekly on my TV in my bedroom.
Yep.
I watched YouTube videos. I watched a bunch of internet broadcasts. I didn't really consume any traditional television. And I was thinking, I'm like, that is so different than how we used to watch content.
Oh my God! When we were kids, there were 3 networks basically, and then a couple of UHF channels. In the Boston area, when I was a kid, we had Channel 38, Channel 56, and that was pretty much it. And then the 3 networks, and then PBS. And obviously, cable happened, and we have multiple cable channels, pay cable, yada yada yada. But the internet is kind of the next step, isn't it? Netflix, Hulu, but also things like YouTube. I mean, YouTube, I did that in the elliptical the other morning. I actually usually watch portions of movies as I go. And lately what I've been doing is I've been splitting up the workout. In the morning, I try to watch videos that are kind of educational, like computer industry related stuff. And lately it's been YouTube. It's very easy to find the stuff you want to watch on YouTube.
It's amazing how even our attention span is totally shot now, because we're used to, with YouTube, I mean, you're watching something for 5 to 10 minutes at most.
Yeah.
And
well, that's the trick. I mean,
yeah.
But that's the nice thing, when you're working out. So if I work out in the morning for 20 minutes or something, you can go find a video that's roughly that length, whereas, well, actually, I guess the typical 20-minute or 30-minute TV show is really about 23 minutes long these days.
Do you what do you do when you're watching content? Do you what percentage of your time is on a laptop, and what percentage is in front of a television?
We still have television, and I've been saying for years that the reason we have cable is because we have kids, and there's some truth to that. Although it's very interesting to watch my children, because they will watch shows and YouTube videos on their laptops of their own volition, over TV, but they watch a lot of stuff on demand. And then my wife and I, we have certain shows that we record during the week and watch on TV, like over Fios, just on the DVR. And we have things that we're watching. We've watched many series on Netflix. Like right now, we're watching that House of Cards series that has Kevin Spacey in it, which is very high quality. And, Netflix is a great way to catch up on series of shows. Like if you wanted to watch something like Lost or, The X-Files or whatever. I mean, it's amazing how you can sit down and watch like an entire season at once. And I think that's one of the big changes because not too long ago, you basically couldn't do that. And then I think with the advent of the DVD, they had the DVD sets, the ability to kind of watch them as you go is fascinating, I think. And then there's also like those kind of like ad hoc uses where like maybe you record a couple of shows on Thursday night or whatever night, and for some reason the recorder doesn't work or you miss one or whatever it is. And then you can kind of just buy the episode and watch it the next day or the next night or whatever. It's really kind of freeing in a way because you have so many choices now.
But it seems like it's still some stuff, some of the things that we want are missing. Like with Netflix, it's almost like every show that I want to watch is not on there anymore.
Yeah, but this is the fundamental discussion around Netflix. I have friends from France. We had not an argument, but we got into this discussion about this because this was a couple of years ago. I was talking up Netflix, and they finally got it, and they said, exactly what you just said. I went into this with this kind of notion of here are the shows I want to watch, and only some of them are on there. And that's not the right way to use Netflix. Netflix is not particularly expensive, but it's easy to find a lot of really good stuff on there. And I think the neat thing about Netflix is you might find some show, and I'd have to kind of make this one up, but like there are like British TV series, that are comedies like Blackadder or Black Books or Faulty Towers or whatever it is. And maybe or have heard of one of those types of shows. You watch a little bit, you fall into it, you end up watching the entire series. Netflix will give you recommendations of shows that are like that. And then you kind of go from there. And if you were to look at my Netflix queue, for example, I have a lot of British TV shows, which is why I brought that up, that I haven't watched yet. But there are a series of shows that may or may not be good. A lot of them are really good. And it's stuff I never would have really known about. And I didn't go to Netflix thinking I want to watch that, but I think that's the point of Netflix, where obviously there's a lot of crap, but you go and you look at what's there, and it recommends things that are like the stuff that you end up liking, and then you find things that you didn't know existed. So I think you can approach this stuff with the wrong viewpoint or the wrong attitude or whatever. And I think cloud computing is like that in general. When people talk about moving their music collections to the cloud or using video in the cloud and so forth. People who need things to be very specific aren't going to be happy.
Yeah, I mean,
you got to be able to kind of go with the flow.
I catch myself watching more independent style content than anything that's on television or on the networks. I mean, maybe I have 2 or 3 shows that I really like to watch. I'll watch Shameless. I'll watch Californication. I'll watch House of Lies.
Right.
Maybe another 2 shows that are currently on television, and everything else is just filler for me. It's just whatever I put on.
The other thing you can do with TV that's really interesting is you can subscribe temporarily to a service. Like you could go, like we've done this. Like we get HBO pretty regularly now, but we went in and we got Showtime for a while, and you catch up on all the shows. Like so, I watched the last season of Dexter. It was something else. I can't remember what the other one was, but you basically kind of rattle through these things, and then if you're done, you can just cancel it and jump in and out of these things as you want. And then when you get HBO, you have like an HBO Go app, and you can or HBO On Demand, and you can catch up on series from the past, like The Sopranos and Rome and Deadwood and all those awesome series that they had years ago.
There's some new show on ABC that my wife wanted to watch. It's about like murders that are happening. I totally forgot the name.
On what channel?
ABC.
I'm not sure.
I can't remember. I'm sure someone's going to tell me in the chat room. But it was on demand on Verizon. And look what these people do, which baffles me. So she goes, "Oh, do you want to watch the show?" It's not Red Window. I forgot what it is. Do you want to watch a show? I'm like, yeah. You know what? I'm sick. I'm in bed. Yeah, let's give it a shot. I have no distractions. She goes to put it on, and they've taken on demand. They've taken the first 2 episodes off. and it has 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do
right.
that?
That's actually a huge problem.
And
So,
do you know why they do that? So you go
no.
to ABC's website to watch the 2 episodes.
So depending on the channel you're talking about, like HBO does the same thing. But with HBO, again, you can go to the HBO Go app, and they have everything. So you can get that on your Xbox. It's on Roku. I'm sure it's in other places. It's mobile. It's a mobile app as well. You can get it on iOS, whatever. Yeah. So I that's been the big change. I mean, and this goes back. It's funny when Apple first started selling TV shows, whatever year that was. When they first launched, of course, it was all SD. It wasn't HD. I don't think the Apple TV was not out then, so you would kind of connect like an iPod with a dock to your TV. It was a really weird way of doing it compared to how it is today. And I was taking screenshots of this TV show, which was Lost, which had been out for maybe half of a season by that point. And in watching the beginning of Lost over and over again to take pictures of it, I finally said to my wife, you might want to look at this show. This is great, And we ended up maybe it was a year later. I don't remember the exact dates, but we ended up buying the season and catching up on it all at one time, which is now very, very common, right? So here we are, probably almost a decade later, and that's the way we consume shows now, and that is a fundamental change. Or if you think about the Netflix show that House of Cards,
Yeah,
where they literally released a half season of shows all at once.
But do you think that's a good idea to do that?
You know what? I do, because I've always thought this. We talk about movies, for example. Like a movie comes out and then eventually comes out on video, and it comes out on cable, and you can rent it and all that kind of stuff. And the window between the theatrical release and the DVD/digital release, whatever, has obviously gotten smaller. And if you go to iTunes today or some of the other services, you'll notice they'll say, watch it before it's in the theaters, or watch it before it's on DVD, or whatever. They'll have these certain movies, and you can rent them, and they're fairly expensive. But I've always thought that was a really good idea, because there are people who simply just don't want to go to the theater, because it's often a bad experience with people talking and cell phones and everything. But now we have beautiful screens in our homes, nice sound systems, and we can watch these movies. And it's, to me, like paying even $20 or more to watch a first-run movie is a great deal. Yeah. Especially if you're with other people, and renting an entire or watching an entire TV series. I mean, I just got an email today from a guy who said, "Hey, thank you for recommending The League. You're right. This is the most awesome show. I have been watching 3 or 4 episodes a night back to back," and he's watching them through Netflix, which is absolutely the right way to do it. And some shows like Lost, I mentioned Lost. When you watch that show on TV, it was horribly frustrating, because you had to wait week to week. Often weeks would go by before a new episode would occur. And you would forget what had happened, yeah. Exactly. And it's such a complex, nuanced kind of show. You kind of need to be up on what's going on. And having, and new seasons would start, and you'd go to like a supermarket, and there would be a magazine with a guide to Lost, which you would almost need, right? Because you forgot. Yeah. Yeah. So I actually do think watching them in this way makes plenty of sense.
I mean, that's how we watch it. That's how we watch television now. Like, I won't, like, our favorite shows, we wait till we have about 3 weeks of it worth, like, in the whatever queue, and we'll watch it that way. But I've heard the argument the other way for this, where it says, like, okay, you know what? For 6 weeks, like, let's say they put the entire series on Netflix, you've watched all of it within, 2 days, and the buzz is gone after that.
No, that's your choice, though. I think it's better to have that choice. Just to keep talking about Lost, when they were making Lost, and actually The Sopranos is a good example of this too, where there would be crazy amounts of times between the seasons, like 18 months or more. The guys who made those shows didn't want that to be the case, didn't write the episodes planning on that being.
But it seems like every show has become that.
But this is an indication of the reality of how the situation's changed, We talked about Downton Abbey, right? 2 months ago, whatever. The way that Downton Abbey works is it's a British TV show that appears in the fall in the UK, and then it comes on to PBS, or I guess it would be BBC America, I'm not sure, in the United States in the spring. And so it might have just concluded the latest season here, but the latest season concluded on Christmas Day in the UK. So I bought the DVD set from the UK so my wife and I could watch that early because we like to do that. We like to watch those shows back to back. And a show like Downton Abbey is a great show to watch back to back because that's another one where, if you waited a couple of weeks, you could forget, like, okay, wait, who is this person and what was the thing going on with these two guys? And so I think this is a great change. I really do.
No, it is. But do you see it evolving anymore? Because, this is the thing. I feel like now that the networks are getting smart to this and they are shifting the way that they present content, where now instead of, okay, it's on Netflix. Well, no, we're not going to put all of it on Netflix. We're going to put season 1, 3, and maybe 5 on Netflix currently, and then everything else has to be consumed on our website.
So actually, that's a problem. And Downton Abbey is a good example of this. There's some deal, I believe, with the makers of Downton Abbey and Amazon where starting in, I don't know, July, that show is only going to be available on Amazon. So, you need to kind of pick your services accordingly. That's, the other part of it. I don't personally use Hulu Plus, although I know a lot of people do. And for me personally, the way, for whatever reason, it seems to have worked out that Netflix is, number one by far. And then Amazon, occasionally. Amazon's one of those things that's kind of up and coming. And I feel like between those two, you're pretty much all set. But, what I've just described is like $80 a year for Amazon Prime. Yeah. And Netflix is what, I think the basic one is $8.99 a month or $8 a month. So, we're talking about a couple $100s. But I send more than that every month to my cable/internet/phone provider right now. A lot more than that.
It's fascinating because even on the iPad, I started doing the AirPlay stuff with the iPad, and it's so frustrating because you can't do AirPlay with the ABC app. You can't do AirPlay with like the CBS app. You can't do AirPlay with this one. Like it's so limited.
Right.
Like we wanted to watch Scandal, and it was on Netflix. We had it on the ABC app, and I couldn't send it over to the television. And it's so frustrating when they do that. And I'm thinking, what's the difference for ABC if I'm watching it on the iPad and I want to, AirPlay to my television? I mean, what percentage of people are doing that to the point that you feel you're going to lose out on something?
Right.
Let's say ad revenue. You're thinking, oh my God, this is going to destroy our business. What percentage of your viewership is actually AirPlaying from their iPad to their television? I guarantee you it's below 5%. I probably maybe 1%.
As you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, if you're doing that, you should just get an Apple TV or a Roku. I mean, one of the things, it's way too early to say this, but, on the Windows side of the fence, I would say that the Roku device is the best one for online services, assuming you're not an Apple guy, because it is obviously Apple is only on Apple. And then there's a Western Digital device that's good for people who have, content on their PCs, and if they have home servers, whatever, they have content on the servers. And actually, the Xbox 360 does pretty well for that as well, assuming you're already paying for Xbox Live. But you have a lot of choices. I mean, I'd rather have something that was just connected to the TV. There's kind of a Star Trek nature to AirPlay, where I'm on my iPad and I'm like, I want to watch this on the TV now. It's like, yeah, sure, okay.
Beam it over.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, but I don't know. A dedicated device sitting on the TV is fine, and they're so inexpensive.
Oh my God, they're dirt cheap at this point. Hey, I want to continue this, and I want to go into our viewer questions. We had questions submitted over the last couple of weeks to us, and also we want the chat room to participate in viewer questions today. It is the Drinking Show, and the Drinking Show is brought to you by Ting.
Jeez.
They're supporting. They're totally.
Our last day is with them as an advertiser.
It actually is the last day for their ad, but not because of the Drinking Show. They're big fans of the Drinking Show. I was talking to the guys over at Ting, the same guys over at Hover, Tucow. So it's a company that you could trust and you could rely on. And Sean from Ting was telling me, he's like, hey, I'm a big fan of that Drinking Show. Make sure you guys do a good Ting ad when you guys are drinking.
What do you think about Ting?
I'm like, are you sure you want me to do a spot for Ting when I'm loaded? He's like, yeah, because I think it's hysterical. I really want you to talk about it. So what is Ting? Funny name, but the company's not funny at all. It's a no BS mobile service. Now, from other carriers like Verizon, AT&T, you're stuck with contracts. You're stuck with early termination fees. You're kind of put into this package that they kind of make for you. With Ting, none of that exists. You have no contract. There's no early termination fee, and you create the package that you want. So let's say you use virtually no minutes, like me. I mean, I work from home. I do a lot of my stuff on Skype. I could take my phone, whatever phone I want to bring over to Ting, which if you have Sprint, it's an easy process. If you don't, you could purchase a phone there. And again, there's no contract. You could bring over the phone, and you could pick, okay, you know what? I want to put 200 minutes on this phone, but I want unlimited everything else. You could do that with Ting. And you could add more phones for only $6 a month with Ting. If you go to gfq.ting.com, you get $25 credit off your purchase of a plan or of a phone. And it's actually a really, really cool idea. It's this new way of doing it. If you're not happy with the service, guess what? You can pick up and leave. They don't lock you in. So great guys over there. Ting.com is a website, mobile that makes sense. Go to gfq.ting.com and get a $25 credit. And I want to thank them for supporting What the Tech and our drinking habits. I do want to help. I do appreciate that. So there was a couple questions here, Paul, that maybe we should get to, and then we'll look at the chat room for their questions.
Okay.
Let me just pull it up here because I had a couple of questions that were submitted to me over the last couple days. And again, I apologize if I sound awful because I'm still really sick. We got a question, and I get this question all the time because of all the Windows 8 talk and because of the change that Microsoft has kind of put in place and the shift that Microsoft has put in place for their future of the Windows brand and the Windows operating system. And we've been critical of them in some parts. You're very critical of RT and what they did with that. I haven't been able to get the hang of Windows 8, unfortunately, and I don't know why. And maybe because I don't use it every single day. When I used it, I like it. I like what they do, but there's still, I mean, my brain hasn't clicked a lot of the stuff that I'm supposed to be doing with it. But
so far, I heard nothing unusual.
I know. My wife loves it, though. My wife absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
I mean,
but what does she use it on?
She uses, she does a lot of word processing stuff, so she's fine with it, but she loves Metro.
No, I mean, what kind of hardware does she have?
I forgot that Lenovo that I bought for her for Christmas. It's a fairly new machine.
So it's a regular laptop.
Yeah, regular laptop.
Okay.
But she loves it on that.
Yep.
And I think she likes it because it's a pretty nice trackpad on that too, and it does all the multi-gesturing, and it does it really well.
I told you about my wife, right? Because I put Windows 8 on her laptop.
You told me she liked it, right?
Yes. Well, I don't know, like is a strong word. My wife doesn't really care about technology, but
she tolerates it.
I kept waiting. I was kind of braced for the inevitable questions and complaints, and after a couple of weeks, they didn't come. And so finally I went up and I said, so you've been using Windows 8 for a while. I mean, how's it going? And she said, oh, it's fine. Whatever. I figured this out. It's simple. But she said, you know what I can't stand? And I said, no. She says, I hate the new Office. She said, can I put the old Office back up?
Really? Why?
And I was like, couldn't believe it. I don't know. So she had crazy problems with stability and whatever. I think it was because she was running like an early version of the preview or something. And sometime fairly recently, a month or so ago, it expired. And so I put the final version on, and she's fine. So it's been fine. But it was interesting to me that, when you think about what a sea change Windows 8 is, that to her was no problem. But going from Office 2010 to Office 2013, which frankly is not that big of a change, from a usability perspective. Yeah. I mean, for some reason to her that was really hard.
You know when my wife freaks out, and she did this yesterday. She's writing her dissertation for a doctorate, and she's almost finished with it. And she was writing it. The dissertation is how did I marry someone that does internet broadcasting? And I'm getting a doctorate. No, she was doing it, and she came downstairs in a panic. She's like, oh my God, I lost it. I'm like, what do you mean you lost it? I'm like, you can't lose it. She's like, no, it's gone. It's gone. She hit the Windows key. And when you hit the Windows key, it kicks you back into, Metro and whatever the last thing was in Metro, and it was, Internet Explorer, I think. And she started panicking. I'm like, no, look, just hit it again. And it takes you to her home screen, the Metro screen. I'm like, just hit desktop. She's like, I lost my mind. I thought I lost it. I was about to take the laptop and throw it out the window.
Wow.
So she like freaked out at that thing. But I'm like, I wonder how many other people like had the same kind of freak out.
Yeah, it's especially on laptops. One of the things I don't like about Windows 8 on laptops is they embed the multi-touch drivers for the trackpad into the system. And so it's very easy to brush the trackpad and cause some crazy gesture that you didn't intend. So, for example, it's very easy to switch apps, to kind of flip through the list of apps that are running in the background. And that's very distracting and very annoying, and surprising. And I think, for normal people especially, that's, for me, it's just my initial reaction to that is this needs to be turned off. This is ridiculous. But I think for most people, the reaction is like, holy crap, what did I just do? And like your wife, I just lost what I was working on.
But to kind of go back to the question, so this guy wants to know, what do you think Apple's going to do with OS 10 or whatever will be after OS 10? I mean, because it's
Andrew,
so crazy to say this, because a couple years ago the argument was, oh, Windows is so behind. They're behind in mobile. They're behind in the operating system. They're the go-to basic operating system. It's your safe bet. And now Apple has become that safe bet. It's the traditional desktop with the traditional, and it's the safe bet phone and the safe bet tablet. So, I mean, do you see them doing a drastic thing like this?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
No, I don't. I think that there is maybe a transition lesson to be learned in how they went from classic OS, 8 and 9 to 10, right? That they're going to maintain these two systems side by side. And I think that iOS is going to get more and more sophisticated, that there will be, they're probably not going to release they're not Microsoft, so they won't have like a pro version, but I really think that iOS gets more sophisticated, and that, the Mac OS, obviously Macs, they sell fine, they do very well and so forth, but they've not taken over the PC industry and never are going to. iOS is a shot of lightning. It's a completely different thing for them.
Okay, so do you think it's why? And again, I'm just putting this question out there. I kind of know what the reason is, but why haven't they been able to capture more than 5% of the market
on the PC?
On the PC, because
it's really hard to displace an entrenched, dominant competitor. Microsoft has always had, not always, but for 25 years has had 95% market share, and it's really hard to come back from that. The only, I have to say, looking ahead, it doesn't matter to Apple because that's a solid business that it makes a lot of money. They're doing great. I honestly, with Tim Cook running the company, they could do things differently. They could have touch screen and all that kind of stuff, and I think that would be fine if they did. But a system where, if Apple were to do the Windows 8 thing where the screen could come off, and when the screen came off, that was an iPad instead of OS 10.
But that's the same argument. Yeah, that's the same exact thing that we've said with Windows. Wouldn't it be great where you take the screen off and it's and it's Metro only, and you put the screen back on, and now you got Windows 8?
Yeah, it sounds great until you actually use it, and you realize it kind of sucks. And so, I think that Apple's sticking with the traditional desktop is maybe the right way to do it. They've obviously integrated in ideas from iOS where they make sense.
The Mac App Store.
Yeah. And I think that's, maybe the way to go. There's no doubt that if Windows 8 had been Windows 7++, with the desktop enhancements from Windows 8 only, people would have been very happy with that. But the problem with that approach is that if they had done that, the Metro thing that they might have released separately, no one would have bought it. So, we don't appreciate it on the Windows side, but by jamming it down our throats, Microsoft is at least ensuring that this thing gets out to hundreds of millions of people every year. And,
well, what if they didn't jam Metro down our throats and they said, okay, you know what, Windows Phone is the tablet and the mobile, anything mobile is Windows Phone, and the desktop is this pretty Windows 8 style desktop.
Then it would be a non-event, because you were just talking about how Apple never reached beyond 5%. So
you really think it would have been a non-event compared?
Yeah, I do.
For what, Windows 8 or for their mobile?
Whatever it's called.
Yeah.
So in other words, if they use Windows Phone for tablets, we would be looking at 1 to 2% market share, and we would be a joke. And that's why they did it. I think that's the important thing to remember.
Yeah.
That as confusing and weird as Windows 8 is, they did it for a reason. Because they have examples from their past where they tried to push these new platforms that people just weren't interested in, and that only by making it Windows, they're not really giving us a choice. And certainly that stinks in some ways, but it's a way to get it done.
Because I just pictured this, fantasy parallel universe where Windows 8 is that Windows 8 that you kind of mocked up. On Win Superside a couple of years ago, and I think there was some app that you just tweeted about that kind of
I was going to say you could spend $10 and you could get Start 8 from StarDock, which changes the start screen to the start menu, and it's kind of like Windows 7 if you want it to be, and you could spend another $5 and get I forgot the name of it, whatever the name of it is. The other what's it called? Let me look.
I saw you just put it out like last week.
Modern Mix. Right?
Modern Mix,
so, yeah. What this does is it lets you run Metro apps in Windows alongside desktop apps. Now, here's the thing: if you actually have a tablet and you're using it in like a tablet mode, you want those things to be full screen, and you want them to be the native way that they are, because that makes sense. But when you use like my desktop computer that I'm using now, or the laptop that I bring with me on the road, which is like a 15-inch screen and it's mouse and keyboard, I will actually run Metro apps in Windows. Xbox Music is a great example. The weather app, mail app, whatever. I mean, all of a sudden, those things that I would never use become usable. And here's the reason, and it's not what people think. When the Metro way of doing things, which is a mobile OS way of doing things, is that when a new email comes in, or when a new calendar, schedule item comes in, or a new message comes in over Messenger, you get a little notification up in the corner of the screen, which is fine if you're looking at the screen. But if you walk away from the computer and that little thing comes up, it goes away, and then you never know what happened. And one of the nice things about the desktop is you've got this taskbar where the icons can have notifications on them. And I can look down and say, oh, look, I have got 3 new emails to read. Whereas with Metro, I would have to go back to the start screen or scroll through the available list of applications that are running to go see whether I had new apps. And so it's the difference between me doing the work and the computer doing the work. And I'm sorry, I'm old-fashioned, whatever, but the way that I work, the desktop makes sense.
Yeah.
I get it. The world's changing. I'm not resisting it. I think it's fine. But those utilities indicate to me how easy it would have been for Microsoft to have engineered this system to work properly for all kinds of systems, and they didn't do it. In their mad rush to push this tablet way of doing things down everyone's throat,
they kind of half-assed
whether they were using a tablet or not, I think they blew it. I think they made a mistake.
Yeah,
so,
and you know what? It's fascinating. I was having this discussion with somebody the other day. I don't think Metro is the problem, and I don't think Metro is the reason why people are rejecting Windows 8. I think it's because the desktop user feels like, well, you didn't do crap to this. There's nothing different. You did nothing to desktop. And it's this weird, like, you have to coexist in both environments to do stuff, which I think if you did it in only one, like you had the option to do it in like, you get everything done in desktop or you get everything done in Metro, but not both.
Look, technology transitions are hard.
It is, yeah.
We have 1.3 billion people using PCs, and every single one of them is looking at a desktop. They're not looking at Metro crap. In the olden days, when Apple was making all of its money on Apple II computers, they were pushing the Mac, and that's the way it was. It was tough. If you were an Apple II guy and you saw all the advertising and all the screen time that people got, for Mac, that really bothered you. And today, as a PC user, you look at these like tablet things and you think, oh, what is this? This is crazy. But, I give Microsoft credit for understanding the way the world is going and for making a very serious push to make that happen for Windows. And good for them. But I do feel equally strongly that they need to respect the existing market for desktop computers, which it's laptops and desktops, that are not going away. They're just not.
No, it's never going to go away. I mean, people say that it's getting smaller and smaller, but desktop is getting smaller.
But it's the desktop.
Yeah.
Okay, literally the desktop is okay, but
But I mean, what is a laptop? I mean, a laptop, it's the same exact thing. Just a small screen in front of you.
look, everyone talks about the Steve Jobs, car versus truck thing, which is a great example. I would remind people, however, if you were to look back over the past 20, 30, 40 years, many, many years, best-selling vehicle in the United States was a truck, not a car.
Yeah.
And, yep, sometimes people choose trucks over cars. Sorry.
Do you see, I mean, Apple looking at, the last 8 months for Microsoft and saying, okay, well, we have to, rather than forcing whatever we want on everybody, we have to kind of iOSify Mac rather than having, a coexisting operating system.
This is the hammer nail thing. So
yeah.
It really is. Microsoft approaches things the way they do because of the successes they've had and the defeats that they've had in the marketplace. Apple does the same thing. So iOS has been huge for Apple. They apply what they can to the Mac. It makes sense. On the Windows side, it's the desktop that's been huge for Microsoft.
But I mean,
so
Apple has to be looking at Microsoft and saying, okay, well, you know what? We can't make the same mistake with iOS. I know people are saying that we're getting a little dated, but if we do this dramatic or drastic change to the fundamental, UI of the operating system,
right,
we might be in trouble.
I don't see that as a problem.
You don't see it a problem for them?
No, because ultimately, if you really think about this, it doesn't matter what the UI of iOS looks like at all. If ultimately what you're doing is launching an app and that app still runs, the UI for the OS can look like anything.
Yeah.
And so there's actually nothing stopping Apple from being truly innovative in the UI space, UX space, whatever you want to call it, offering additional capabilities to apps to expose information to the user in ways like Windows Phone does, for example, or Android does with widgets or gadgets, whatever they call it. I can't remember which is which, but there's nothing stopping them from doing that. But even those apps that don't do it will still run like they did before. The runtime is the same, right? So Apple's problems, such as they are with iOS, very easy to fix.
Yeah.
Very easy to fix. And I'm very interested to see what Johnny Ives supposedly is taking this over, what that looks like. There's an awesome opportunity there.
Oh, there is. Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that sometimes someone going from hardware to software doesn't really work, but I think in this case, he's going to work really well for them.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see.
Have we seen any of his changes yet or no?
No.
No, right?
No, but listen.
Because I'm telling you.
The problems with this skeuomorphic design thing date back for years and years, right? It's the Notepad app with the teared off page at the top, or the calendar app that looks like one of those desktop calendars that people haven't used since the 1960s. Or the podcast app, which is maybe the most recent example, where it looks like a reel-to-reel tape. Which, by the way, no one who uses those devices has ever seen
one.
has no idea what those look like. It's such a bad design. It's lazy. Easy to fix. That stuff is easy to fix. I think they're going to do a great job. We'll see. But obviously, look, for all the stuff we can say about Apple, that we can complain about the software design, we can complain about the prices. The one thing that no one can complain about is their hardware is amazing looking, and the guy responsible for that is going to work on the software. Yeah. So,
before we move on, I did want to bring one thing up that I was thinking about. The whole thing with the iPhone and the iPad and even the iPod. The purpose of those devices are to get you in the Apple environment, and then you end up buying a MacBook. Or that used to be. Remember, I mean, that was the whole thing where it
was the halo effect.
Yeah, the halo effect. So, but that has not happened. The halo effect
is broader today, right? So remember, what you're saying is in the old days, the goal was to get you to Mac. Because Mac was the expensive thing.
You get an iPad.
That's not the goal anymore. The goal now is they want you across the board. So a good Apple customer today would have an iPhone and an iPad, an expensive iPad, right?
Yeah.
Would be paying for internet access, yada, 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 keyboard, all that kind of stupid stuff. The Mac is like the icing on the cake, but the idea there is that customer is invested into the ecosystem. They're buying apps, they're buying content, they got an Apple TV in their house. They're in iCloud. They're doing the whole thing. Then that's when you get someone like that, they're wrapped up, and it doesn't matter what they think about Apple at that point. For a lot of people, leaving that ecosystem is very painful. Expensive.
Yeah. Oh, it is, and I'm having this discussion with somebody that I know about. They want to get an Android tablet, or they want to get an iPad, and they're asking me which one. I said get an iPad, and it's like they want an iPad, but I think they feel guilty because they've been so anti-Apple for so many years, where they're fighting me. They're like, yeah, but I can't root an iPad. Like I want to root my phone. I'm like, why do you want to root your phone? And they don't even know. Like they're like, well, you could do cool stuff with it. I'm like, what do you mean by cool stuff? I'm like, the whole purpose of rooting is because the phone is limited, and you can't do certain things. So I'll get back to that. Maybe we can talk about it next week. But I do want to take this little break. I do want to talk about Audible.com. Good old Audible. They've been with us since day one. And what's there to say about Audible? Audiobooks. They have an unbelievable selection of it. Over 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature, fiction, nonfiction, whatever you could think of. And they've been with us for a while. If you go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew, you get a free audiobook when you sign up, which is phenomenal. And I know Paul's a huge Audible fan, and my wife is a humongous Audible fan.
Yep.
And it's interesting, and I bring her up because she is very disconnected from the whole tech scene. She's not a tech geek like I am, but she's become, over the last couple of years, she's become, far more into this stuff than I ever imagined. She has a brand new Windows 8 laptop that she's loving. She has, a smartphone. She has all these crazy apps on there, and she's a big Audible fan. And yesterday I had to reinstall Audible on her iPhone, and I was thinking, I'm like, it's amazing how services like Audible, it's accessible from every type of platform now.
Yeah.
When I started using Audible, this is like the first year they were out. The first book I got was Along Came a Spider by James Patterson. Yeah, James Patterson.
Yep.
That was the first audiobook I got, probably 1997, 1998, like the first year they were in business. And I remember I had to download it with a special downloading application, and then you had to run it, and I forgot. It was some weird way that you had to do it.
It's terrible. That app is still around.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah. If you had like a Rio Carbon, dating back to like 1999 or whatever year, you could still sync Audible books to that thing with that app.
That's amazing. And it's come such a long way where now, it's on every platform, and you get all your books, your library's there, and once you get the book, it stays there. So it's amazing. Paul, do you have a book that you wanted?
Yeah, so Amazon owns Audible. And it's very interesting to watch how the situation between Audible and Amazon has started improving in recent days. And so they have this feature called Whisper Sync for Voice, which is suddenly available like everywhere. And what this does is it allows you to listen to an Audible book to some point and then pick it up again on your Kindle and read it as a book. And then you put it down and maybe you get back in your car, and then the Audible book picks up where you left off on the Kindle, and it goes back and forth like that. And it's kind of an amazing deal. And so one of the reasons why that's kind of exciting is the prices kind of come down. So for example, if you're on Audible and you wanted to buy something like The Bourne Identity, which is a book that I'm actually rereading now because it came out on the Kindle for the first time maybe about 2 months ago now. It was a book I had read years ago, just in a paper version. So finally it's available on the Kindle. But they have Whisper Sync for Voice. And so if you were to buy The Bourne Identity on audible.com, normally it's about $48. But if you already own it on the Kindle, it's $9.99. And it gives you that capability to go back and forth between the two. And I think it's such an amazing thing. It's like it's really kind of neat. And so, I don't commute to work like some people, but I read these books on the Kindle sitting at the kitchen table in the morning. I can get on my elliptical, listen to the Audible version of the book, and I can go back and forth between the two. And to me, I'm sorry, it's just amazing. It's amazing. And I love that kind of thing. So, I guess the Bourne Identity is not exactly a new book. If you're into the movies, I would say that this is the one book that parallels the movie, right? So they made Bourne movies like the Bourne Ultimatum and the Bourne Supremacy, which have nothing to do with the books. The first three books that were written by Robert Ludlum about the Bourne, about Jason Bourne, are actually a connected series of stories that have this awesome villain that frankly should have been in the movies and wasn't, and maybe will be someday. But of the three, the Bourne Identity, which is the first, is the only one that bears any resemblance at all to the movies. And so if you're a fan of the Bourne movies, you'll kind of appreciate the differences. It's a much more detailed story, and the characters are very different. Marie's very different, and so forth. But it's an excellent one. But it gives you the chance to go back and forth. And I'm seeing that more and more. I mean, The Name of the Wind, which was the Audible pick I had on Windows Weekly this week. Same thing. Inexpensively. Once you purchase it on the Kindle, you can get it much more inexpensively on Audible, and that really opens it up in a way that just wasn't possible in the past.
It's not my pick. I haven't gotten it, so I can't say it's my pick of the week. But I just went to Audible's site, and there's something that caught my eye, and I'm actually going to download it now. It's called All the Rave: The Rise and Fall of Sean Fanning's Napster, and it's a detailed story about what happened to the company and how it fell apart.
I had read a book about Napster a long time ago. I wonder if this is the same book.
Named one of the best three. Yeah, it's from 2003. The book.
I bet I've read this book. It
could have been. How was it?
It's been a long time, but I mean, I tend to read a lot of the industry books, and I mean, assuming this is the one I read, and I think it is, just looking at it. It's narrated by John Rubinstein. Is that like the John Rubinstein?
Yeah, I was about to say, is it the John Rubinstein?
If it is, that can't be the same guy. No, that can't be the same guy.
Well,
it can't be.
He's done a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah, I think the John Rubinstein we're thinking of, the Apple/Palm guy, is John Jon, but he also narrates Whitey, which is a book I recommended recently, which is fantastic, about Whitey Bulger. No, that can't be that John Rubinstein. Okay.
It would be interesting if it was.
Yeah, it's not, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and you guys should check it out. I mean, even if you've never downloaded an audiobook, here's the thing: depending on what book you pick, your experience will be totally different. I mean, it's not the same old, like with the Kindle, it's like a robot reading it, there's no umph behind it. Even some audiobooks, I mean, in the early days of audiobooks, there was no umph behind it. With Audible, these guys are trained actors that are reading these books. And sometimes, there's multiple narrators and there's multiple parts being filled, which is phenomenal. I mean, it's like the old time radio style of broadcasting. You used to sit down in front of the radio and listen to a story being told. Great stuff. I thank Audible for supporting the show, and support Audible. audiblepodcast.com/Andrew. Get your free audiobook. You get 1 credit to download any book you want, and no commitment needed. So thank you, Audible, for supporting the show. Paul.
Yes.
I'm going to go down a list of questions, and we'll do like rapid fire so we get a lot of these in. I'm going to go, let me go here. Andrew, has Paul heard or seen the fixes on the core apps for Windows 8? No. Okay.
I will, one comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
People talk about Blue, this coming update for Windows 8 and other products.
When is the date for that? When is the
way to think of it is roughly what we call in the industry GA +1, which means general availability plus 1 year, meaning in the case of Windows 8, October 2013, roughly speaking. Delivering something that is essentially a feature pack plus service pack for Windows 8 1 year after it is released is not actually that huge of a deal for Microsoft, but we're making it out to be a big deal. I don't think it's going to be the huge thing that people think it is, but certainly much more quickly than once every 3 years. Between now and then, Microsoft is going to update the core apps in Windows 8, supposedly. I have heard separately from the Mary Jo story, which is the impetus for that question, that the media apps like Xbox Music and Xbox Video are not going to be updated until June or July. So that gives you an idea of the time frame, and that's important because again, we as users, and I write this a lot. I say, why can't they update this stuff more quickly? These apps suck. Why can't they fix one feature at a time and release it, next week or 2 weeks from now or whatever. And I don't have an answer for that. But in Microsoft's world, which is very slow moving, releasing something like Blue 1 year after these products are released is a big deal. Releasing major updates to the core apps like Xbox Music, Xbox Video, Mail, Calendar, etc. And doing that, say, 6 to 8 to 9 months after GA to Microsoft, that's really quick. And unfortunately, that's the schedule. So it's just important to understand, how that's going to happen.
Has Paul heard anything about apps that exist as Metro and desktop?
What does that mean?
This is what I think Windows 8 needs, different view for one app.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The one thing I've heard on the side is that Microsoft will continue to release Metro versions of Office apps. So we have like OneNote and Lync today, and there'll be SharePoint apps coming very, very soon. That I expect over the next year, you're going to see more Metro versions of Office apps. And now that I've said that, I'm just making it up from here on out. That might mean something like a Word Lite type app or Excel Lite or however they want to call it, Word MX, whatever, where it's not the full functionality of Word, but maybe it's something roughly akin to what you get in the Office web apps in a Metro version. And it's kind of a way to, put the feelers out. And if you look at how they've updated the Office web apps over the past, I bet it's been about 2.5 years or so, I think that's a good indication of how they can do it with the Metro apps too. So it's something that will happen over time.
Does Paul see the next Xbox having media services available without subscription fees?
Nope.
Yeah, I was about to say nope.
Nope.
Let's see here. Does Paul know if there will be any updates to storage space in the Blue update?
I don't know anything specific like that. Sorry.
Let's scroll down. And then we did the Audible read. And then let's see.
Someone in the chat room said, I love looking at my living room window and seeing the Lufthansa A380 on its way to Frankfurt. Where is that person?
Yeah. JFK.
Oh, wow. They know it's going to Frankfurt. That's amazing. That's great. I mean,
I just made that up. Maybe they're not in JFK. I just made that up.
That could be. That's Miami. Okay.
So this was an interesting question that was sent to us. And we get asked this all the time. What do you think the future of podcasting is? Paul, you are a innovator of podcasting, in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm not making a joke. I'm not making a joke at all.
No.
You are, and I've said this. I've said this 1,000 times.
I show up every week and I talk, and that's not being. I'm not an innovator in any way.
I did an interview with a magazine, local New York magazine here, and they were asking me, what got you into it? How did you do podcasting? I said, well, I've been a huge radio fan my whole life. I was a big Howard fan, and I always loved listening to the show. But I've also been a fan of Leo Laporte, and the first podcast that I heard. I've heard internet broadcasts, but like the first time I sat down and I started listening to podcasts was Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Leo Laporte. And that was one of the first interviews that I did. So I gave you credit on that. But you've been doing this for 6-7 years now.
Yeah. But again, I've just been kind of showing up. I don't really, I mean, when Leo contacted me to do Windows Weekly that summer, we were just about to go on the home swap, and I told him I need to, get back to him in 3 weeks or whatever because we were leaving. But we talked about it briefly, and the way that I described it at the time, he asked me, "How do you see this show going?" And I see this as an extension of what I do on the web already. It's a conversation with readers in that case, or what you might think of as listeners. And so, obviously, what we're doing today is a more direct version of that, but. There's a thing when I went to dinner last night with some friends of mine from high school, and we get together all the time. And we have a certain set of things that we talk about. Almost none of it is technology related. And that's our kind of thing. But you could kind of imagine getting together with people in a bar or in a restaurant and hanging out and talking about technology. And I sort of think of that, of this and that, the other podcast is that kind of thing, because like-minded people talking about things that interest them, that's all.
Where do you see you headed?
Well, we were talking earlier about how the way that we digest TV and movie content has changed a lot over the years, and I think podcasting is a huge part of that. I've talked about the one podcast that I feel very strongly about, the How Did This Get Made? And I was just listening actually earlier today to their most recent episode, which they do live episodes. And so these people travel to New York or to other places, and they do like a live show as an audience. And it's, if you've been listening to this podcast, you can tell that the audiences at their live shows have gotten bigger and more excited to hear them, and the comedy that occurs and all that. And this is like it's like citizen publishing. It's changing the face of the way that people digest content, and it's a big deal when a show like House of Cards becomes a show on Netflix instead of on a major network or on HBO. Someday a show like that will be on a podcast. I think this is a major platform for information and for entertainment, and it's akin to how cable TV was in the early days. It's kind of the Wild West, but it's something that matures over time and gets better and better. And there'll always be amateurs, but there'll be professionals. And
no, it's amazing to me, and I think the next thing for podcasts, I think it's the word podcast. I don't like the word. I consider what we do as an internet broadcast. I don't really call it a podcast.
Yeah.
I think the next step is going to be that there's going to be a clear divide between crappy content and really good content.
You know what I got to do someday?
What do you have to do?
When I was in junior high school, I recorded like pretend radio shows with a friend of mine. And
I would love those tapes.
Yeah, I have them.
Do you really?
Oh yeah. So it's interesting. And the other thing I used to do when I was a kid, by the way, is I used to write books. And so
that's so fascinating.
It's interesting to me that I grow up and I kind of do the same thing. And you're kind of influenced by what's around at the time. And so when I was a kid, we had radio and we had TV, and that was what it was. And today what we have is a much greater set of influences. People can make music with GarageBand and with actual instruments and whatever. I mean, there's so many more outlets for people who are creative and want to do things than there were when we were kids. And, things just keep getting better. So I think podcasting is going to be a big deal.
XYZ.
And I think this is one of those areas where Microsoft's blowing up.
YYZ in our chat room says, is podcasting just a new form of radio via Netflix is a form of video? I think it depends what you mean by podcasting. See, this is my clear problem with this. Podcast could be some marketing guy sitting there and selling you, shit.
It could also be a video.
Or it could be a video, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that call themselves podcasts, but they're not really a podcast. It's some advertising guy, doing his shtick and putting it out there, people downloading it.
It could be purely educational as well.
Purely educational, yeah.
People post videos on YouTube. I mean, those things are, roughly speaking, video podcasts. I mean, we don't have a good term that encompasses all of this stuff.
I think there's a difference between an entertainment show or anything could be entertainment. Like what Twit does, those are real broadcasts. Those are internet broadcasts. It's radio formatted style programming. We kind of stick to the same format here. That's why I say it's an internet broadcast, and I think that's going to be the evolution of it. We're going to have better content out there, and it's going to be readily available. I think the problem with internet broadcasting is that, and there was a phenomenal discussion last night, a very interesting discussion last night on This Week in Radio Tech, which broadcasts live here on GFQ. If you're interested in radio stuff, you could go back to, if you go to our website, gfknetwork.com after the show, you could check that show out. They had this very fascinating discussion about the evolution of radio and if internet broadcasting is going to take over AM and FM. And pretty much the discussion was about, well, it will take over if they figure out a good way to make money off of it. Because right now, nobody knows how to make money off of doing this. I mean, we're doing the traditional ad model. I do like a live read. I throw it back to Paul, and Paul talks about it, and that's it. We're done. But I think with internet radio, they're going to have to localize and personalize the ads a little bit more. And I think it's going to be geolocatable applications. Let's say CBS puts out an app.
It's funny. Podcasts are like, the TV series stuff we were talking about. You could listen to it live, I guess, in some cases. Or you could listen to them all back to back. That was I for some reason I keep bringing up this How Did This Get Made podcast, but at some point last year I discovered it, listened to a couple episodes, and said, "Oh my God, I got to listen." And I went back and downloaded every single one of them. And over the course of last summer into the fall. I don't remember when I caught up, but at some point, I literally went and listened to every single podcast they ever made, and I've never done anything like that before. But it's neat that you have that chance. I mean, if you listen to your radio, like you just have a regular radio in the car and you drive to work every day, or you're riding on the bus or whatever, you may like some radio show, whatever it is. You listen to it, it's live, and it's gone. The nice thing about the podcasting stuff is that it's not just that slice and time thing. Yeah. And of course, a lot of traditional radios are now radio shows are available as podcasts as well. I think the ability to go back in time and listen to it again, or listen to the topics that interest you or whatever, is a fundamental change. It's what makes this thing really cool.
What's amazing is that even with the ad models, the ad model that's placed right now for broadcasting, internet broadcasting, they don't care about my live at all. They would actually prefer if I did not do a show live and I just pre-recorded a show and I put it out there because they want to track every.
Maybe it's easier to track.
And much easier to track, and they want to track it. And and I'm telling them, I'm like, no, it's the live that sells your product, not the download. And there's this major disconnect. But they're like, but we can't track it. I don't know how many people are watching live. I don't know how many of them heard it. I could see it for the download. So it's an interesting, thing that's going on.
I think it's important to have both. Some people want to listen live. Some people want to kind of rack them up on a device of some kind and listen to them when they have the chance.
I love listening to it live. I mean, that's pretty much everything, all the podcasts, quote unquote, that I listen to are live, broadcasting live on the internet. Yeah, I have a couple shows that I listen to live, downloaded, and like those are the ones that I listen to when I'm driving. If I'm at home, I'd rather listen to something in the car.
Yeah.
What did I just say? If I'm driving, if I'm at home, I'd rather listen to it live. I think the cough medicine is kicking in.
I agree with you. So I'm obviously in the same space, but
someone said, can we move What Detective Fridays? No, because we have 3 shows on Fridays. Yeah. It's just, I'm not doing any other shows today because I'm dying.
There's sometimes I get in the car and, where I can't deal with music. Like I want to listen to something, and it could be an audiobook. It could be a podcast, whatever. And I'm always prepared for those situations. Like my phone has a bunch of stuff kind of stacked up on it where I'm ready to go. And whether it's the Thomas Jefferson Audible book or some number of podcasts that I have on my phone, like I don't necessarily listen to them all the time, but they're there. And so like next week, for example, I'll be traveling. I'll listen to more of these things than I do normally when I'm home, but they're ready to go.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that that's possible. You never know what you're going to want to do.
Yeah, and the great thing about podcasts is that you could download as many as you want. Like the other day, I downloaded like 15 new shows because I just wanted to check them out. And shows that people have been telling me like, oh, you should check this show out. And I downloaded like 15, 20 shows. And most of them, I only gave them like 10 minutes of listening and I couldn't listen to. There was one that I absolutely fell in love with. This show was amazing.
Yeah.
And my problem with the show was the host. I thought it was a phenomenal show content-wise, and it was stuff that I'm really interested in, but the host was just awful. And I'm thinking, this would be perfect if somebody else did it. But you don't have that luxury with something else. I mean, you're investing time into a television show. Like let's say, imagine if iTunes had to invest money into every show that they're putting on iTunes. It'd be a disaster. Nobody would be on there. I mean, that's the beauty about this. It's the Wild West. So I guess that was a question. No, the Q&A is not over, by the way. We totally
We're
took
just going to pontificate for a little while about podcasting.
Let's see. We'll do 3 more questions.
I'm just a passenger.
Yeah, we're just hanging out now. Let me see. What are your thoughts on the new 18-inch tablet, Asus Transformer AIO?
Yeah, I don't know.
Let me see this thing.
This is the giant screen you can kind of walk around the house with.
Oh, and have you seen what they have with this? I wish I hooked it up. There's like a fake monitor that you mount it on.
Right. I don't know. I feel like we're in a kind of a transitionary period where we're feeling it out,
I think we're going to see a lot more of these devices, Paul.
Yeah. Maybe.
Like I think the whole thing with Windows 8 is that whatever floats your boat. We're not going to be confirmed.
I think people are going to rally around pretty standard devices. It's like a Microsoft promo video where like the woman's working on her computer and then something happens in the other room, so she lifts the screen off of the monitor stand and walks to the other room so she can watch her kid or something. Like, it's one of those things. It makes good demo, but I really don't think in real life that's going to be such a big deal.
Surface 2 predictions.
Well, I mean, obviously the next version of the chipset's going to be a big deal. The one thing I'd love to see from Surface 2 would be, supposedly there are some fixes coming around the screen scaling stuff. Hopefully that happens more quickly than I think it's going to. But if you look at like fall 2013 and a Surface 2 that was the thickness and weight of the Surface RT would be amazing, absolutely amazing. So, we'll see. It can only get better.
Ask Paul if he'll watch the Conclave.
The what?
Conclave?
What is Conclave?
I don't know.
Oh, you're talking about the Pope thing.
Oh, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch that.
And I didn't see your question, so submit it, please, if I missed it. So now I'm just trying to go through it. Paul, does Paul have time to do other podcasts?
No, not really. I mean, my schedule is interesting because I have this weird equilibrium where everything is okay. And if I add one more thing to it, it just goes to kind of hell in a handbasket. And I think the way that things are now with the 2 podcasts, that's enough, Mm-hmm. I think when you and I were talking about doing this together, I was like, yeah,
you were drunk.
Right.
We were really
like
drunk
such a
in a
good
bar.
idea at the time. I don't remember. There was some kind of date rape drug going on, but it was, it just seemed like a good idea at the time.
Paul goes, what's a great idea? I want to talk about technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do that. I never do that.
I never talk about that.
It's funny. It seems like it's easier than writing, and it is in some ways easier than writing. It's certainly less time consuming, but I'm very tired of the sound of my own voice, and it's hard to talk, for a while. I mean, you kind of go,
Camera flash on the Surface 2?
I don't think cameras are important on the Surface, as far as like taking photos. I don't think that's the point. The point of a Surface photo is for Surface cameras to do video conferencing or whatever. I don't see that as a big deal.
You know what? Here's a question. If you could do another podcast, non-tech related, what would it be?
That's a good one. What if I were to have any other interest, what would it be?
World War II?
Yeah, World War II history stuff would be interesting. I heard an idea for a podcast that I thought was so genius, it made me mad that I didn't think of it. And actually, maybe I'm getting this wrong. I think it's a Twitter account.
Tell me what it is, because I'll totally steal it.
Someone who posts or writes or does whatever about like this day in World War II. And so what they did was they went back to the beginning of World War II.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Oh, no, that is a podcast.
And every day they post it as if it's new.
No, that is a podcast. I've seen. I could have swore I found that.
That's so smart. That's just really smart. I think that's neat. So that kind of thing is interesting. I talked about my friends from high school. We have these. We're very frustrated with the poor level of quality you see in like comedy programming these days, and we always feel like we could do a better job at that kind of stuff than what you see on TV or in movies and so forth. And I wouldn't mind doing like I would call it like townies, like a kind of local. It would be like a good New York / Boston thing where it's basically a bunch of local guys just getting together. If you think about the comedy that's in like something like Family Guy, where Seth MacFarlane clearly grew up in New England and gets the area, and there's a lot of good humor about the area that may or may not resonate with other parts of the country. I can't say, but my friends and I have that kind of sense of reality. So I could picture that kind of thing, but
that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Mary Jo should do a beer show.
Yeah. Yeah. I keep saying to Mary Jo, like, listen, this Microsoft stuff is going to implode. So when it does,
you need a backup plan.
We need to do a beer. I've said that to her a lot. Yeah.
Does Paul get data within Europe for his phone, and what does he do?
I do. I always get international data. I'm lucky enough to be on AT&T, and they have very reasonable data plans. And so when I go away for a week, I do one of the lesser plans, like I did last month when we went to Mexico. But when I go to Europe in the summer, I buy the most I can get, and it's a good deal. I mean, if you think about it, I go away for 3 weeks, a couple $100. I could be online the entire time. We can use the Maps app on my phone and churn through the data, and it's great. It's a really good investment.
Let's see. One more question, and we will slowly wrap it up, guys. So
Okay.
send it in. Come on. One more. The chat is a couple seconds behind, so I actually had a question for you, and I totally forgot what it was. You know what it is? Tell me something that you... what are your likes? What are your dislikes? Now, what do you hate the most about...
What is your sign?
What are you?
Actually,
Who
it
are
might be
you?
something different. They changed the signs.
Did they?
Yeah,
What
like
do
the
you
date ranges for the
They changed? I didn't know that.
yes. So when I don't remember. I mean, this will be someone in the chat room will surely know this, but my horoscope sign or whatever was always Scorpio, and it could be something different now. I'm not really sure.
It's different. I had no idea. Not a clue. Had no idea. What is the one thing that you hate about the industry that you're in?
The one thing I don't know. I
get asked that a lot because I think people want you to just attack people.
Yeah.
Because you get really frustrated with a lot of like the crappy tech journalism.
Sure. I mean, right. I'm sure when I was coming up in the world, there were people frustrated by me because in their worldview, I was cutting corners and whatever I was doing. Who knows? And certainly, I have the same frustrations with the younger people today. They're so lazy and terrible. And they can't write, and then they write really shitty blogs. But whatever. That's their point. That's okay. But no, I mean, honestly, the funny thing is when I go to industry events and I hang around with these guys, we get along great, and I like a lot of these people quite a bit. Actually, a lot of my good friends work in the industry and are just great guys, and so it's that's kind of a tough one. It's not ever really about people or other organizations. I don't know. I don't really like. What do I hate? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I feel like technology, the one thing that I'm always a little off on is actually related to something we talked about earlier, which is the rate of change. It never seems like it's the right pace. Things are always happening too quickly or too slowly. And it's funny, after doing this for 20 years, I still don't have a really good handle on how things should be happening. I was talking earlier about this Blue update and the stuff that's going to happen before Blue. And, in my mind, that stuff should happen way more quickly than it is.
Than a year, yeah.
That said, I'm working on these kind of book things on the side, and those things happen very slowly. And so who am I to speak? I mean, I can't get anything done quickly either. And so it's kind of a tough thing. It's kind of hard to say.
Very, very cool. I think that's it, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up. That was it. That was our Friday show. I'm starting to feel really sick again.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm dying. I'm
going out tonight.
Are you?
Yeah.
Where are you going? What are you going to have? You're going to
Actually,
go out
don't know. So we're either going to go to our favorite restaurant, which is Masona Grill in West Roxbury, or we're going to go to a Lebanese restaurant.
Ooh, very nice.
I haven't heard yet, so
very nice.
It'll be based on other people's decisions.
I like the Mediterranean style food.
Yeah,
those are the food of my people. A lot of meat, a lot of flatbreads.
Meat on sticks.
Meat on sticks.
Rice.
That's all you need to do.
Kind of
rice
and big kind of dipping sauces that are unclear what they are.
No
but
clue.
Doesn't matter.
Has a lot of garlic. Everything has tons of garlic.
The wine's good too. Lebanese wine is good.
I've never had. You know what I had for the first time? I had German wine.
Oh, by the way, white wine, right?
Yeah, white wine.
Yeah, that I actually prefer red wine by a huge margin, but they have these they're almost like I think of them as steely kind of white wines that they make in Germany that are just really crisp and
it was very crisp.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
I never had it, and it was like a cheap bottle too. It was like a $12 bottle.
The problem with Germany is like the best stuff doesn't ever leave the country, and so you almost need to there's a whole wine growing region, as you would imagine, bordering France. That's amazing.
I had no idea that. This is the first time I had German wine, and it was really good. It was really good.
Yep.
So you learn something every day.
It's always on time, you know.
Always on time. Because they're Germans.
Yep.
I actually found out something very disturbing about my house.
Mm-hmm.
When people who don't know, this is my childhood house. When I got married, my wife and I bought it. It's a whole story. But when my parents bought the house, also Madonna used to live in my house. Madonna's manager used to rent my house.
Wow.
Camille Barbone and Madonna and like a group of like 15 other girls used to live in this house. So when my parents
someday they're going to come back as part of some documentary, and that's going to be the greatest day of your life.
Greatest day of my life. I've heard insane stories about them. I told a story a couple of years ago on the air, and people were like, "That's impossible." I got emails. You're so full of it. Madonna didn't live in your house, and I contacted Madonna's manager, and I wrote, my name is Andrew. I live at this house. Is this story true? Because all my neighbors told me the story, and they go, absolutely. And she told me like in detail, like crazy stuff that used to go on. I'm like, would you come on the show? I'd love to interview you. It's like, you know what? I would love to come by and see the house because I have so many memories, but I do not want to talk about the stuff that we did. She goes, it was just a really dark time in my life. We were
there are entire rooms you would never use again.
Well, yeah, if I found out. But when I was talking to my mother, and she goes, it's interesting. When I bought the house, when we bought the house, the master bedroom was covered in swastikas. Like top to bottom, like everywhere.
Okay.
And like, I was thinking, I'm like, what a disturbing sight. And you bought the house? Like, and I'm like, why'd you buy it? She goes, it was really cheap. I'm like, no wonder.
Wow.
It was just covered top to bottom. And I wonder if, maybe Madonna and her crew did that. I actually found old coins in the wall. Did I tell you that?
Yeah, actually, okay. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, I found a bunch of coins in the wall. So it's a really old house, but I found that really disturbing. That like the master bedroom was covered in swastikas all over, top to bottom. Really weird and uncomfortable. But and that's story time with Andrew. That was my World War II story of the day. Paul, thank you for hanging in there on Friday with me.
No problem.
I appreciate it. At the Rot is Paul's
showing up.
Yeah, it was. Listen, I hung in there. I'm doing all right. I'm gonna go back and lay down again because I'm probably gonna get really sick again. But follow Paul at the Rot on Twitter. WinSuperside.com is the website. Windows Weekly every Thursday at 2 p.m. East. Also, on next week's show, we're doing it on Friday, right?
Is that what we're doing?
You tell me.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so we'll do it around the same time. We'll do it 4 o'clock. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, so next week's show will also be on Friday. Paul is moving around, so he's traveling. So we're gonna change the schedule a little bit next week. Also, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Andrew Zarian. You can follow me there at GFQ Network as a network. And of course, if you miss any portion of the show, you can check it out at gfqnetwork.com, where we archive everything. We're on iTunes. We're on Windows Phone. We're everywhere podcasts are available. So follow us and subscribe to us. That helps us out a lot. And we'll see you all next week on What the Tech. Good night, everybody.